let's hit on the defensive side of the ball now. So we'll start out the defensive line, and we lost a bunch of people here. So Alfred Collins gone, Vernon Broughton gone, Bill Norton gone, Tia Sevilla gone, Jermaine Lole gone, Baron Sorrell gone. I mean, there's so many damn people that we missed off this, especially on the interior. I mean, you really only lose Baron Sorrell off the edge. You lose a bunch of guys on the interior. So what do you think about this defensive line as a whole?
Yeah, I think you have to look at it almost as two separate units. I think the edges will be the same, if not better than a year ago, and I think the interior will probably be worse than it was a year ago. But again, this is a group that I think, along with the wide receiver room, has a really big delta between the floor and the ceiling, right? Because there is a ton of untested, unproven talent in there, right? There's some former high 4-star guys in there, some former top 100, top 50 kind of guys in that defensive line group, especially the defensive tackle group, right? It's there's a lot of talent and there's a lot of experience on the lower end of the talent spectrum there. So I think this group has the opportunity to be really good for Texas, but I just don't know who it's going to be. We're still trying to figure out who's going to be your number one defensive tackle, who's going to be your nose, who's going to be your 3. We don't know that. We have zero clue. None of these guys have proven anything in Austin. So I think on the edges, I think Texas will be better by virtue of you've got most of the same guys back and they'll be a year better. But I do think on the interior, they're not going to be as good as they were a year ago.
I completely agree. I think this is one of the best edge groups in the whole country. I think it's top 5 for sure. They're really, really good. They're going to be able to get after the quarterback. I think we have the best edge player in the country with Colin Simmons. But yeah, the interior, I just think is going to take a drop off. Last year, again, everyone said this is going to take a big drop off because you went from Sweat and Murphy to Collins and Broughton. But it didn't because those guys had played before and they got better in the offseason. I've never seen any of these guys really play for Texas. I haven't. I've seen Alex January play a little bit. That's it. So I do expect a bigger drop off from the year prior. So I think overall, I think this defensive line is going to be about the same. I'm just going to say neutral. I don't think it's going to be a lot better, a little bit better. I think it's literally going to be about the same on the defensive line as a whole.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, I think the edges will be better, but the tackles will be worse. So it kind of balances itself out there. It's a very weird group to try to judge.
Yeah, 100%. The edges could be a top 5 in the country, and then the interior could be one of the worst, honestly. It could be. I'm not saying it will be, but it definitely could be. It would not shock me.
I would be more shocked by them being bad than them being good. I'll say it like that though. I think I would be more shocked by the defensive tackles being really bad than them being one of the better groups, just because there's so many different bodies to choose from. And there's a lot of talent in there. And I think a lot of these guys know that this is probably their last chance to prove that they're who they were coming out of high school. So if they're not locked in and dialed in, that is a shame, because some of these guys could be in the league in a year or two if they lock in, they dial in, and get their stuff together. It's they could be really good. It's a contract year for some of them.
No, I agree with the bodies part. By virtue of bodies, you have 7 to 8 guys that I think are legitimately going to get playing time. You're bound to find 1 to 2 pretty good players in there. So, or hopefully, I hope we don't go 0 for 8 on those guys, because we do. That could derail the season. But overall, I think it's a neutral. You think it's going to be about a neutral as well?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Linebacker, I think it's going to be a lot better. You really only lose David Benda. I think Ty Anthony Smith is going to take a leap here. I think Anthony Hill's the best linebacker in the country. So I think this linebacker room is going to be very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Leon Leifau take snaps from David Benda as the year progressed. Anthony Hill is only going to be better. This is his last year in Austin, folks. So watch every snap with fear and reverence, like you would at church, right? Because he's gone after this year. Take in every moment. Leon Leifau is going to be better. He was already developing and becoming a really solid linebacker. Like you said, Ty Anthony Smith is going to be a guy who steps in and really adds to the rotation. Texas added a guy in the portal who I think is also going to be a contributor in the rotation as well. So, this group, not even just by virtue of experience, right? Because Texas has basically the same guys they had ending last year, and they're going to be a year better, right? They're just going to be better. And I think they're going to be significantly better than they were a year ago.
No, I agree. Hey, guess what? That will help the interior as well. So that definitely will help out the interior, the defensive line. I completely agree. I think this is probably the last time we had this type of linebacker play at Texas, is when we had Malik Jefferson his last year. I think he was that damn good that his last year here. So it's been over a decade now since we've had that type of play. So I do expect the linebackers to be very, very good and a lot better. I think, honestly, out of every position group we've named, I think this takes the biggest leap.
I could see that. I think you're spot on there.
Next up, now this one I think is going to be worse. Cornerback. You lose the best cornerback in the country. You don't really have anyone to replace him. You also have Malik Muhammad coming off his worst year of the two that he has been on Texas. So he's got to slide over now and take over for Jahdae Barron. Can he just get back to his freshman level of play? How does the other cornerback position look, whether that's Kobe Black or Jalen Gilbo? And then nickelback is the one position I do think we're going to be better at, because I think Jelani McDonald ends up probably winning that, if not for Wardell Mack or Grayson Littleton. I think any one of those guys will play better than Jalen Gilbo did last year. I think Jalen Gilbo, honestly, was the biggest disappointment in the secondary last year for Texas at the nickelback position. So I do think that's the one position group we do get better at the cornerback position. But both outside, I expect to be worse. I just do.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right off front. It's the same reason why I feel like the offensive line is going to be worse. You lose one of, if not the best defensive backs in the country, and you're going to be worse by virtue, right? You remove the Thorpe Award winner from that unit, they're going to be worse. Now, again, I think there's a lot of talent in this group. You mentioned Manny Muhammad. I think is a guy who probably wants to step up. This could be a contract year for him, right? Jelani McDonald, this could be a contract year for him. Jalen Gilbo has got to prove that he's an NFL guy, or he's not going to make it, right? Contract year for him. So I put a high value on it. You know, it's silly to call it a contract year, but it is, right? For a guy who's going into his third year, a guy who's going into his fourth year, right? This is the year or years where you have to prove that you're worth an NFL draft pick. And so, you know, I think there's these guys, hopefully they're locked in, hopefully they're dialed in, but I just don't think by virtue of, again, you mentioned you lose the Thorpe Award winner, not walking through that door next year. So that in and of itself is a loss, and things are going to get worse. But I think there's a lot of guys with a lot of talent who have big NFL dreams that if they don't put it together this year, that's probably not going to come together. So I think that's something that hopefully will spur and spark them to kind of get their act together and get things going.
Yeah, and this room has the talent. Like, yeah, you're loaded at cornerback, like talent wise, but I just don't think we have the experience early on to, you know, deal with that. What we're, especially Ohio State, like their wide receivers week one with that secondary could be an issue if we can't get to the quarterback. I could definitely see that happening. So I do think it's worse. I think honestly, this is probably we just went from the biggest climb for a room. I think this is the biggest drop off for a room, is the quarterback room.
I completely agree with that. I think that this room is going to be, and again, this is why we need the edges and the linebackers to be really good.
100%. Next up, we'll go to safety. You lose Andrew Makuba, who was absolutely phenomenal for this team. But I think overall, this is going to be either a slight positive or basically neutral from last year, because you're going to get Derek Williams back. You have, I think, Xavier Filsaime is going to play a lot more this year and play well. You bring back Michael Taft. They have a lot of good players in this room. So I think overall, I think we're even at worst with this room, in my opinion, going into next year.
Yeah, I think this room, much like, you know, some of the other I've mentioned, kind of honestly like the running back room with CJ Baxter, right? I think if this group is going to be as good as it is last year, I think it depends on Derek Williams' health, right? Is he able to come back? Is he going to be as effective? Is he going to be who he was, you know, his freshman year? Because he was a really good safety, right? So like, replacing Makuba is big shoes to fill, right? 70 tackles, 5 interceptions, tone setter on defense, right? So like, Makuba's gone, Taffy's back, and he's going to really create the culture. But from a like on the field production standpoint, like Makuba was that dude last year. And so, you know, does Derek Williams come in and meet that? Or is it Xavier Filsaime? Is it Jordan Johnson-Rubel? Like, who is the guy who's going to come and step in to Andrew Makuba's outsized, you know, impact that he had on the defense in 1 year? I don't know if they can do that. I think they have the talent, they have the ability, but again, it's untested. We have not seen them in the big seat, in the big chair, kind of with all of the weight on them of doing it. So with that being said, I think the group will probably be worse, but again, depending on Derek Williams' ability to be healthy and to play and contribute.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that, and I completely agree. Like, Derek Williams is a really, really good football player. He was playing really well last year before he got hurt. So I think he can do almost everything Andrew Makuba did, and even more if he's healthy. But again, he may not be healthy right away. But I will say he's been practicing, and from all reports, looks pretty healthy. So that's really good. So overall, I think we both have wide receiver being a little bit worse. We have cornerback being worse. And then you have safety being worse. But overall, do you think this team is better next year at every position group?
Oh man, it's so hard to like this was a team that went to the college football like semifinals, right? So it's hard for me to say they're better because like that would mean that this is a national championship playing team. And I just like I the expectations are really high for this team right now. I it's hard for me to say better, even though like I went position by position and said that a lot of them will be better, but ultimately like I still can't say this is going to be a better team next year. Just we have to see it, right? We'll know pretty early on whether or not they'll be a better team next year. I think position by position, but we've seen it at Texas before, where the sum of the parts is not as great as what they put on the field, right? So like there's that like in the back of my head that I just can't quite get over.
No, I agree. I think they're going to be about the same, honestly, talent wise. They might be a little bit more athletic overall. And then I do think they'll just probably end up losing one more game because the schedule switch and you're going to play much harder road games this year. That's how
Yeah,
I feel. So,
on
like,
the road at Florida, yeah,
yeah,
it's
and Georgia and
yeah.
Ohio State. So that's what I like. Don't even look at the record; just look at the product on the field. And last year, let's be honest here, Texas allowed teams to stay in games. Like they should have killed a lot more teams on that schedule. I do think you'll see that this year because of the big playability on offense and getting after the quarterback. I think they're going to blow some teams out pretty easily this year. That honestly, last year they didn't.
I can see that. Vandy, Arkansas, those kind of games where Texas, it should not have been a rock fight, and it was. I'm with you there.
That does it for the position group breakdown. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below.